Affirmative.
Welcome to the DudeFax podcast. Four guys united by their love for coffee and corny jokes come together to talk about Christian culture and the ups and downs of ministry. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy. The podcast starts now.
Affirmative.
Hey everybody, guess what? I'm not Kev and I don't have you covered, but we have you covered as the DudeFax podcast because we're back.
That's
and
right.
I'm here with J. Philly, G. Rizzle, Factoid, and I am JT J. Tizzle.
Can we just call you Grizzle?
That's what I thought it said at first.
Is that a part of a chicken?
See, you guys at home can't see this, but we have like our names at the bottom of the screen, and Grant says G. Rizzle. I read it as Grizzly at first, but it does say Grizzle.
Grizzle.
Yeah,
It's like that's an animal that would describe my last bowel movement.
some grizzle in your nizzle. Well, today our episode is all about one of the greatest pieces of comedic genius that has ever graced the airwaves of American television, and that is The Office.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We all have our office swag.
I don't know if I have any.
We're going to be sharing quotes.
You guys didn't
We're
bring
gonna
any
be talking-
office swag?
I can pull up the peacock on my phone.
We are going to be talking episodes, our favorite episodes, favorite characters, favorite cold opens, favorite lines, all that good stuff, and just sharing an appreciation for a show that all of us like. There's other shows that we all like as well, but we thought one episode specifically talking about The Office would be very amazing for our listeners to hear, because we know a lot of you like The Office as well. And so before we get into that, we're going to just sort of like have our own little office water cooler talk, hang out. I got a question for you guys, like a serious question. Do you guys, when you go to the gym, do you like people that grunt really loud? How much gruntage is too much gruntage?
I think the gruntage is dependent on the amount of weights. I mean, it has to be. So,
Of course.
if you're doing something little and it's like, that's too much. But, okay. So I will allow some, but it's correlated to the amount of stress.
Well,
So when does the gruntage get too loud, though?
And for me, it depends. There's a normal amount of grunting that someone might do to get that last few inches on a pushing of a bar or something like that. It helps you exert a little extra energy. But that's the people that just sit there and like the entire time are just
Pink and flicker.
and just like yelling the whole time, like they want everyone to look at them. That's when it's too much.
I get that. I think if I can hear it over my music that I'm listening to, then it's too loud.
Yeah.
Because I get that. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're lifting something pretty heavy and you got to make a little bit of noise, okay. But today, I'm like 15 feet away from this guy who's doing deadlifts. I've got my music up pretty loud. And every single rep, the guy's like, oh! I mean, like the entire gym can hear this, and I'm just like, dude, if you're gonna do that, go in the bathroom.
Loud noises!
Yes,
Sometimes at
unnecessary.
Planet Fitness, I hit the lunk alarm just because if a guy's got a sleeveless T-shirt that's cut too low down the sides, makes me feel uncomfortable.
So wait a minute. You can activate the alarm yourself?
No, I think you can. I don't actually.
Oh, okay. I was like, I need to be doing that.
There is like a button on the wall that you can hit. I don't know if it actually does anything if you hit it.
Because there's guys there all the time that completely line up with what they say they're going to raise the alarm for.
Yeah.
I thought, you saying that, I thought, oh, well, that's our responsibility to do that.
I did see like a Reddit, like an anonymous Reddit AMA that this person said they worked at Planet Fitness and that they just hit it if they don't like people.
Now, Jeff, from your vantage point of the man that was deadlifting close to you,
Yes.
could you tell if he had any hearing devices?
He did not have any hearing devices.
If he was deaf, he'd feel so bad.
He could have been.
But then he's not listening to this podcast, so then you're safe.
It doesn't matter.
He doesn't
matter.
Unless he has an interpreter there.
That's true.
Somebody sign. Is that something we need to add?
How do you interpret a grunt?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No, I'm talking about the podcast.
Way you can do it.
Closed captions? I don't know.
That's what I was saying. Is that something we need to
turn
add?
closed captions on YouTube.
Hmm.
I mean, they're not always right, but
Well, I love this. I have 3 seniors across the street from me that way. I have another house full of seniors to the south of me, and I'm sitting in my garage. Like, I'm sitting on my flat bench. My computer is on my adjustable bench. My squat rack's behind that. And I grunt all the time to assert my dominance in the neighborhood of all these seniors.
while you're lifting weights?
Yeah.
Okay.
All up in the garage door, just grunt every morning.
You just go out
I
there
just thought
and stand
maybe
there
like
and
where you're starting your lawnmower up or something.
First pull every time, baby.
depending on
So
how
jealous.
old your lawnmower is, you might have to grunt to pull it. Words get rough.
Bending over to pick up the newspaper.
Usually my morning grunting comes in the restroom.
I mean, I understand the grunting too a little bit, but there's a point where I think it's more about, hey, I do want to assert my dominance or let everybody know that I am like the big bad bear of, this cave. And I'm like, we're all in here trying to get our swole on. We're all in here trying to lift weights and get in shape. And, I don't know about you, but I don't look at other guys and think, wow, I'm really impressed with what they're doing. I mean, every once in a while, there's just like some specimen who looks like The Rock who comes in and, is doing like crazy stuff. But, for the most part, like you're in here doing the same thing I am. There's no need for you to grunt like you ate, way too many, Inferno challenges. Is that what it's called? Buffalo Wild Wings?
Is that
whatever their challenges? Blazing challenge.
The Blazing challenge?
Yeah, like you just had the Blazing challenge and you couldn't make it out the restaurant
challenge
before you had to go into the bathroom.
Jeff, what machine were you on when he was grunting?
I was on that machine where you move your legs like this. No. I was actually on the bench press. So, I mean, I was doing something kind of manly, I guess. But
machine or?
No.
It was a barbell?
Yep.
Look at you.
Oh, yeah. Always.
Was it on the base gym? Or at the base gym?
It was at one of the, gyms on Fort Campbell.
Okay.
So, yeah, a bunch of soldiers in there. A lot of testosterone flying around, slapping you in the face. A lot of grunting. But we don't want to just talk about grunting, even though I think this is a good transition.
Fascinating topic.
What we want to get into before we have our office talk is we got to talk about the comments that have come in. So speaking of a bunch of like testosterone flying all over the place, we had some high profile grunting going on TikTok this week, didn't we, Ryan?
Look, I just want to say that, YouTube's been kind of quiet on the comment front for
come on, Ted.
weeks. But
you
guys
where's
are
Tad been?
Or Pam. Who's the real commenter?
Have we offended you two? We need to know you're still alive. Make sure to comment.
David, go visit
on
them.
this video if everything's okay. But if you're not following the DudeFax TikTok account, you're missing out because there's some heated discussion going on over there.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. I'll start out with my favorite one, which was what was his name? Jagan930, who commented and said, "I only follow this account to laugh at how bad these posts are." So,
You're welcome.
Your mom goes to college.
it's nice to have.
So it's the only reason I follow it.
Yeah.
Well, you sound disappointed in me. Like every
I'm gonna look for nipples on nuts.
And then going back to our ongoing, it seems, greatest of all time in the NBA debate, Michael Jordan or LeBron. We had Seiko coming back strong.
Yeah,
with,
Seiko's back.
Yeah,
Me and
he's getting
Seiko, we're like this. Me and Seiko.
Let's see. Let's find some choice ones here.
Seiko, thanks for sticking with us and having fun in the debate with us.
Yeah.
Even though you're wrong.
And we are old. I mean, I admit that.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up watching
At
Larry
one point
Bird.
in the debate, Seiko said YouTube is free. Buddy, I'm sure I could talk about ball way further back than you and know more about it too. So,
But you didn't.
Speaking pretty big there.
So that means I can't go back and watch YouTube?
Yes. So, well,
Okay.
and I think he referenced us as old, which I take offense
Yes.
to as someone who's 32. I'm not old. But he said that, but then talked about YouTube. I'm like, YouTube's been around for 15 years now. It's like we've been watching YouTube probably since this guy was in the cradle.
But
When Michael Scott, found YouTube, he didn't work for 3 days.
That's true.
But doesn't wisdom come with age and the ability to have more information at your disposal? Maybe not more information at your disposal, but you've watched it.
I think the first-hand information is the key point in the MJ versus LeBron debate. He also did bring up he made a jab saying that if it's all about stats, then Bill Russell is the greatest player of all time, which Bill Russell is one of the greatest players of all time. There is no arguing there. But we're talking about, like, I feel like this debate is a lot more about the feel, and yet you really just had to be there to watch Jordan play. It's hard to describe. Stats don't tell the story. You really had to see him play live. It doesn't.
You do, and even YouTube clips and videos don't put you in the context.
No,
and
they don't.
And I know that the young bucks don't want to hear this and get mad every time us old guys talk about the league being harder. But that's just the honest truth. I mean, come on. I mean, I know guys are bigger and stronger now, but they also take a lot of nights off now. You mean
and it's a shortened season too, isn't it?
the other night Jimmy Butler kicked a guy in the crotch and they called a foul on the other guy. I mean, come on.
He put his crotch in the
Nuggets.
way. It was his fault.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't give him a chance to land.
Well, and the fact that a jump shooter can pump fake, get the defender to jump straight up, and then jump into the defender and draw a foul, that tells me all I need to know about the weak defense that's allowed to be played in this generation. I mean, I sent a link to a YouTube video on just a whole collection of defense from the 80s and 90s in that conversation. I mean, guys were brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. I mean, on purpose. It wasn't like, oh, I accidentally elbowed this guy. It was, no, I planned it. It was in the game plan.
Yeah, they were out there basically throwing punches on the court.
Yeah.
Like, it was ridiculous.
I'm sorry. What sport were you guys watching?
Hockey.
Was this like a Dana White endorsed
Yeah.
video?
Might as well have been. I don't know. Dana White, how old is he? Was he the coach of the Pistons?
Yeah.
Well, I told Seiko that defense in the 80s and 90s was a mix of mixed martial arts and the Hunger Games, and that's fairly accurate.
It is.
You know what I loved? One of my favorite interactions with the three of us and Seiko de Mayo was when we're talking about the greatest players, primarily Jordan and LeBron, and Bill Russell gets thrown in there, and then Josh brings up John Starks.
Tony's dad?
That was awesome.
Just because I was a Knicks fan, I thought I'd throw some John Starks in there.
Oh,
That was great.
Yeah, he after I made the John Starks argument, Seiko just typed, "Okay." ...
Yeah, and I think he left.
he
at
knew
that
it
point.
was done. It was.
He went to bed.
Argument done. I mean, you can't come back to that.
But I think Jeff also closed the argument for good with his comment saying LeBron pours his milk before he pours his cereal, which honestly is just what more
psychotic.
proof do you need? That's right. That man's unstable.
No comment.
Uh-oh, Grant, are you a guy that does this too?
Say what?
So do you do this too?
Do what?
You pour your milk before you pour your cereal?
What?
So how do you
It's
know
a learned
how much milk you
behavior.
need?
Boy, are you a man?
Next, you're going to tell me that you eat a Kit Kat by biting in the middle of it rather than peeling it off one by one.
I actually do take bites of Kit Kats.
Do you also eat Oreos without taking them apart and licking the inside of the frosting?
Yeah. Why do you lick it? Waste time.
The best way to eat an Oreo.
So speaking of that, Ryan, I found out like maybe 2 years ago that the rest of my family eats Oreos that way. They eat it like a sandwich rather than peeling it apart and licking the frosting off, which I thought everybody did.
Yeah, that's how
And they're
you
like,
savor
no. They're like, you don't do that. I'm like, yes, you do.
Now, there's only
like a
a
sandwich.
Oreo, okay? You got good frosting and then a couple of dry, mediocre cookies to follow that up.
Now, the only way you eat it as the cookie is if you're dipping it in peanut butter and then eating it. Like, that's okay to do it. The whole thing.
That is
dip it in
good.
peanut butter and eat it.
Or milk.
Or milk. Yeah. True.
I don't know
You
if
get double stuffed Oreos.
Peanut butter. I might have to try that.
That is really good.
It's
You get a double stuffed Oreo, shove a shove a fork into it, put the fork into the milk until no bubbles stop coming, pull the fork out, and eat the Oreo. No licking.
You know, double stuff was always like really good and had a lot of filling in the middle, but have you ever eaten a mega stuffed Oreo? Those things, it's like, it's got like a half an inch.
That's a lot of stuff.
That's right. I like eating Oreos to this music.
Somebody walks in and there's a room alone. Listen to that. Eat Oreos.
In your boxers.
Turn the light back off.
This is my private reflection time.
Right.
I don't like to be disturbed during my meditation.
Oh, man.
Any more exciting comments, Ryan? From
No, I think that mostly covers it.
Right.
There's some other comments, but I think those are the good highlights.
I'm glad Tyler came to our defense and
We did, yes.
Congratulated
Tyler did
us
come to our defense.
on getting a few haters.
Yeah, we got haters, so we know we made it now.
That's right. We've made
Well,
it,
still
guys.
singular. Hater.
Hater.
One more, we'll have made it.
Well,
One more.
no, there were-
Come on.
No, there are two, because there's the guy that said he only follows us for the bad takes.
Oh, right.
Or however he worded
There
that.
you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And there was the guy that said that I
We
looked
made it.
like the dad from Young Sheldon.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad that I tagged Seiko and he came back. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll
glad he
have
was
to
a good
figure out a
sport.
way to tag him and get him back in. He actually wants to come on the show and debate us about LeBron. So, yeah, maybe we'll have to think about that one day.
You better be a master debater.
A little too far across the line.
I had to look for it.
Yeah. So we do have, Seiko, we have, speaking to you, buddy, we have this thought, I don't know, we feel like you might be LeBron on a burner account. So if we can get Seiko on the podcast, maybe we can figure out if that's true or not.
We can see.
He joins the podcast. It's just like a dark silhouette with a distorted voice.
A vocal distortion.
I am not LeBron.
And if we can't agree to get along, we'll just have to figure it out with fluffy fingers. So fluff it out.
He doesn't have a profile pic, so
Yeah.
there is some mystery there, as far as to what Seiko actually looks like. I mean, it could be a 12-year-old girl for all we know.
That's right.
He just really likes to rip on us.
I think that defines probably what this podcast is accomplishing perfectly.
Yes.
We make 12-year-old girls angry.
That's the
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but
Speaking of making people angry, I think it's time for Grant's dad joke.
Woo! We've missed this, Grant.
Yeah.
Way to bring up my angry dad. So, a senior pastor, a worship pastor, and a youth pastor get stranded on a desert island. And they find a genie. And the worship pastor rubs the genie. Poof, out pops the genie. And the genie gives each of them one wish, but they cannot leave the island. So the senior pastor says, well, then I wish for an unlimited supply of water. And poof, he gets an unlimited supply of water. The worship pastor says, well, then I wish for an unlimited supply of food. And poof, he gets an unlimited supply of food. And the youth pastor sitting there thinking and thinking and thinking, and finally says, well, I wish for a car door. And poof, he gets a car door, and the genie disappears. And the senior pastor and the worship pastor are staring at the youth pastor saying, what is wrong with you? All you had to do was wish for shelter. What were you thinking? And he says, well, duh. This way, if it gets hot, we could just roll down the window.
Pink and flicker.
Classic. I like it.
It's like,
It's an old one.
That to me is representative of the main character of The Office, Michael Scott. Sounds like something he would do. And I think it's a great transition into our topic of the day, which is just The Office.
that's right.
One of the greatest shows ever to grace American television and television over in the UK as well. Do you guys ever watch the British version?
I tried. I couldn't get past the first couple episodes.
I
But
watched it, but
Go ahead.
David Brent is just an irredeemable character. He is a scumbag. Like, Michael at least has some redeeming qualities.
That's true.
Which one? Which character is he playing?
He plays the Michael character.
Yeah, David
Like
Brent.
David Brent is like the
Ricky
Michael
Gervais's
Scott
character.
Oh, his name's David. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's hard to watch. There's only one season of it though, so it's not too much.
Yeah, I just couldn't get through the. I don't even know if I made it through the first episode.
Well, it's funny because the first episode, the American Office, actually mimicked the episode very similarly, and so it's funny to go back and watch the British episode, which was done first. But I think you're right, Ryan. The David Brent character doesn't really have any redeemable qualities. He is. Part of what makes The Office funny is that Michael is awkward. He sort of encompasses, that I think ugly side of how most people know they shouldn't think, but truthfully, if we're all honest in our hearts we do find ourselves having some of these thoughts when it comes to issues of gender, race, other appropriate behavior. And Michael just lets it all out. And he's like almost the extreme. But even though he does it in sort of a naive, in a way in which he is trying to genuinely, look out for the people that he manages. But at the same time, wants people to like him and wants sort of that glory side as well. And what I like about The Office is it makes an awkwardness come from that. But it doesn't glorify the misbehavior, but rather sort of pokes fun at it through the experiences of Michael and the other characters. And it feels raw and it exposes the ugly side of life. But I think it also reminds us to laugh at some of the things that we sometimes take way too serious, and also sort of poke fun at the ridiculous behavior or results that come from a life that's lived in prejudice or ignorance or self-absorption. And I think that's what makes it a great show. So it's going to be fun to talk about it. What sort of things do you guys love about The Office before we get in and talk about episodes and quotes and all that good stuff?
I think it's funny.
Show is funny.
You took me by the hand, made me a man. That one night, you made everything alright.
Do the harmony like Andy, Ryan.
Oh man, I think one of my favorite things about The Office is that, and I think I've grown to, because The Office started coming out when I was in high school. As I've gotten older, and now that I'm in the workforce and I work in an office daily, I appreciate a lot of the things in it a lot more than I did when I was younger, because there was always funny, but like now I get a lot of like the kind of American workplace satire that the show is about, and it's really spot on a lot of the times, because like there's so many like character archetypes that like you see those people in real life. Especially like, the Michael, the guy who's like pretty well past his prime, still thinks he's really cool and is trying to relate to, everybody younger in the office and trying to be everybody's friend when he really should focus more on being their manager or boss. I see that one quite a bit.
Well, and Grant said it's funny, and it is. Like it's one of those shows that, I mean, I'm watching back through it now. Again, I don't know what number this is, but every time I watch an episode, it doesn't matter how often I've seen it, I'm still laughing at things I know are coming. It's so funny, and the writing I just think is so good, and the comedy is it's not so much like. There's some stupid things in it, but a lot of the jokes are smart. It's not just low-hanging fruit all the time. Some of it is, but
plenty of low-hanging.
But there is. But I think it's just smart in the way that it's written, that you never think, oh, this is just ridiculous, because I think what you're saying about like characters like Michael, Jeff, that we relate to it. We're like, I would think or do the exact same thing. So I think that comedy that way being written in a way that it's not like, oh, no one would ever do that or think that or say that, is where it is. I think where the genius is in the writing of the show, and I think what really makes it funny over and over again.
Yeah, talking about relating to the characters, is there a specific character that you find yourself? I mean, every guy you ever ask, like, yeah, what character are you like in The Office? They're like, oh, Jim, because he's the coolest character on the show. But
no, he wasn't. He had a Subaru at one point.
But I know cool guys have Subarus, or at least their wives do.
No, they do.
But what character or characters did you find yourself maybe? Or at least as you see it played out, you're like, I see a little bit of myself in that. Or I really relate to that specific person. Is there one out there that just sort of jumped off the screen to you as being that one that you just sort of feel like I've been in these situations, or I'm that type of person?
Daryl.
Yeah.
If I can't say Jim, I'm going to say Daryl.
Pink and flicker.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's who I would I don't know. Maybe Stanley. Just because, just because sometimes when I see things that are ridiculous around me, I'm just like, oh, come on, I'm just going to ignore it. Or I see that kind of just passive type of attitude in me towards certain things in life that just don't make any sense. There's no reason to be acting a certain way or thinking about a certain thing or concerned about something.
Crossword puzzles.
I like crossword puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
And pretzel day.
I love pretzel day. I just like food day, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of pretzel day, when he describes all of the different toppings, and then Michael says, "Can I have each topping?" and the guy says, "One with the works coming up," that sounds like the most disgusting yet also good pretzel in the world.
It's so funny because it sounds like something a 5-year-old kid would get.
Yeah,
I want everything on it.
It's like a kid going to a soda machine and like making a suicide, like just going to each thing,
mixing them all together,
like some abomination of a drink.
It's the breakfast Will Ferrell's character makes on Elf.
Yeah,
Buddy makes on Elf.
Exactly.
So here are the toppings.
Nice.
Sweet glaze, cinnamon sugar, chocolate, white chocolate, fudge, M&Ms, caramel dip, mint chocolate, chocolate chip, marshmallows, nuts, toffee nuts, coconut, peanut butter, drizzle, Oreo, sprinkles, cotton candy bits, and powdered sugar. That sounds delicious, honestly.
It sounds really good.
But at coma.
I think we should have had that ready and eaten it together here on the show.
Oh, we should have.
Yeah.
All right, next time.
Oh, awesome.
Jeff, who do you relate to?
I honestly think there's some of Michael in me. There are times when he does stuff and I'm like, yeah, I would totally do that as well. Not to the extreme or the level of ignorant prejudice and things like that. But I think more than any character, if I have to get away from Jim, because I feel like I am the eye roller a little bit too, or sarcastic guy. I think Andy is probably the character that I see myself in a lot. And he's kind of like Michael Light in a way. But I think it's his goofballness, his corniness, but also he's sort of like the nostalgic one of the group too. And at the same time, Andy it's so funny because he's such a light goofball character, but then he has like this anger streak. and that's kind of me too. Like I am like the light goofball, but something makes me mad. Like I'll rage sometimes, and I'm like, I totally get that. So Andy is one that I've thought before. Like, yeah, I could see some of myself in him. But yeah, really a lot of the characters.
I definitely have seen a lot of Dwight in myself over the years. Mostly just in that, like, he will just go on rants about like oddly specific topics and get really really passionate about them. I definitely have done that a few times in my life.
Like the dollop you dropped.
Yeah. Like your discussions with Seco the other day.
Yeah.
What about you, Grant?
I was dumped not long after the first season with Gabe. So I always kind of see myself in Gabe, but then always Creed. Or am I?
Yeah. That's right.
Creed, your teeth called, your breath stinks. Boom, roasted.
You had that keyed up. Whoever did that must have known I was going to say Creed.
Yeah.
You ready?
We can just tell, Grant.
That was impressive. We all knew you were going to say Creed.
Do you also take items from your church and secretly sell them online to make money? Do you sprout mung beans in your desk?
No, but
do you have that smell in your office anyways?
Dude, not that smell. I eat tuna for lunch every single day, and my secretary hates fish. And I inherited the secretary with the merger, and she's the best. Pam, you're never going to listen to this no matter what, but I love you.
Pam?
Yeah, her name's Pam.
Tuna? Coincidence? I think not.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, okay, never mind. I was going through the names of every employee at the church. No, we're good. So it does have a funk in my office, for sure.
You know, when Ryan, you were saying that you're kind of like Dwight, I could picture you hiding various weaponry around the office. Definitely.
People say, oh, it's dangerous to keep weapons in the home or the workplace.
Yeah.
Well, I say, it's better to be hurt by someone you know accidentally than by a stranger on purpose.
I will say that, funnily enough, I do hide, like, improvised weapons, like, kind of in...
There you
go. In the open, sort of, around my house. Like, they're things that, like, you know, look like they could just be, you know, a mundane, everyday object. But then I'm like, I know that's there if I ever need it.
Are they real weapons, or is this going back to your dollop?
It's
like a lightsaber.
I wish I had a lightsaber. So anybody breaks into my house, they just hear lights up.
Dwight had a lightsaber.
Yeah, he did.
True.
Yeah.
So when you guys think of favorite episodes, I mean, there's so many good ones, and we could get into, you know, every single season and multiple episodes in every season. But what's one or two episodes that just kind of jumps out to you as this was just classic, and you always got to go back and rewatch it?
I think the classic answer is the dinner party.
That seems to be the one that is popular as far as people liking that one.
And it is a great episode.
Well, and the great thing about the dinner party, so I read, like, there was an interview with, like, the writers where they were talking about this, probably came out a year or two ago, but they talked about how they based the dinner party episode on the play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which I don't know if any of you have seen that, but I watched the movie of that when I was in college for a film studies class, and when they said that, it, like, immediately clicked in my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what that episode is. And it's just like two people that are just hate each other, that are just, like, making everyone else around them super uncomfortable the whole time. Oh, it's so perfect. I think the beauty about that episode is that everyone can think of, like, times they've been in, like, awkward situations like that where two people are just kind of, you know, sniping at each other, and you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so weird.
I think the thing I related to the most in that episode was the fact that they were taking forever to eat. Because I've gone to a few dinner parties, and I've been, like, starving, hungry, and they're just, whoever is wasting time, like, either talking or taking forever to get the food to come out. And I think there's a scene where Pam's, like, hiding in the bathroom doing her talking head, and she's talking about how hungry she is. And, like, I have been in that situation.
What they say about me.
Yeah.
I just want to eat.
I'm just ready to eat.
And there's always the flat screen TV. It's like,
it's like this.
Yeah, like when I don't want to put it away. It's like, dude, back.
And of course, that awkward, cringy moment when Jan plays the song that we played earlier from her assistant Hunter, and then she tries to dance with Jim
while he's sitting down.
Well, and then there's the whole snip, snap, snip conversation
vasectomies.
That is so. That's I know we're going to talk about cringe moments, but that's one of those. That's one.
Yeah,
of
what was that a
those.
reference to?
A vasectomy.
Yeah, what's that?
Multiple vasectomies.
Yeah, and reversals.
Yeah, what are those?
You know what kind of toll it takes on somebody?
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip.
So one of my favorite episodes is Women's Appreciation. What I love about that episode is not just that Phyllis got flashed, but it's the fact that the whole episode is like a setup for the final joke on Dwight, and that's probably my favorite. We're talking about pranks that Jim does on Dwight. That is probably one of my favorite pranks in general because Pam makes the poster of the so-called flasher, the predator, and Dwight's out with Andy posting it all over town, and then Jim calls him on the phone at the end of the episode, and he's like, "Hey, I actually have information about the predator." Dwight's like, "You have information about the predator?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just saw him in the bathroom above the sink." So Dwight runs in there, and the little mustache is drawn on the mirror, and he just kind of scans up and just sees it right over his mouth, and it looks just like the poster that Pam made. And he's like, "Pam!" But I think one of my favorite parts of that episode is where the poster is up on the fridge in the break room, and Jim just walks in, and he looks at the poster, and he's like, "That's pretty cool." Like, it's so subtle, but just hilarious.
That episode has one of my favorite quotes too that I say to my wife all the time, and she hates. It's where they're out at the mall when Michael takes the girls shopping, and he's like, "Is it a Pap smear or is it a schmear like cream cheese?"
It's so great.
Scott's Tots.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That
You say
episode
that.
is so great. It's so hard to watch.
Cringe moment right there.
Yeah.
It's like a 30-minute train wreck.
I remember in that episode more than any, I think, cringe moment, like honestly, like just feeling the pain of being in that situation. I was like, "Oh, this is so funny, so uncomfortable, but so hilarious at the same time."
I think of that episode every time anything with the college forgiveness on a federal level gets mentioned. It makes me laugh.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, that one is, it's just so, it's, especially since it's coming, you got to force yourself. I feel like I have to force myself to watch that episode. It's almost not even enjoyable because of how
so
uncomfortable you
embarrassment.
get.
Like,
I know. You're like, "Oh, don't do it. Don't do it." I mean, I've seen it, 8 times, and I'm still like, "Don't do it." But it's tough. But it is great when he pulls out the batteries, the computer, and none of them have laptops anyways to use them. And like, what are we going to do with this?
We love you, Mr. Scott.
The whole
They wrote
dancing sequence.
Yeah, well, how did the song go again?
Oh gosh.
It's,
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Make our dreams come true.
Hey, Mr. Scott. Yeah.
What you gonna... And then Aaron sings it on the ride home.
Yeah.
And sings it on the ride home.
Oh,
Yes.
man.
One of my favorite episodes is the basketball game.
Yeah.
And that first season and the first 2 seasons are so good. I mean, every episode is good. Diversity Day. I think that was the second episode, and it, like, the pilot was good, but it's like it went from here to way up here with episode number 2 in Diversity Day. But the basketball game is so funny because Michael reminds me so much of myself when I was trying to play like pickup basketball. And because I remember I would say things like, and Jeff, we would play a lot in high school at the church. And I was not very good. And I remember I would say things. I don't know if I said it out loud, but I definitely said it in my head, like, "What is wrong with me today?" And, like I'm usually good. And so, but that day I just happened to be bad. And so I feel a lot of Michael in that episode. But then when he thinks Stanley's going to be awesome, and he comes out and does the Stanley
before the game,
and he does that Stanley dribble. I know you can't see it, but it's so funny. And Michael's like, "What? Are you serious?"
The scene near the beginning of that when he's picking the starting lineup is still one of my favorite scenes. When he's going through, and it's part of Michael and his prejudice and generalizations again, as he's going through the starting lineup and he just looks over at Stanley. He's like, "Stanley, of course." And he's like, "Why, of course?"
There's a company who took that logo of Stanley dribbling and like put it on a hat, like the Jordan logo, but it's Stanley, bent over this hand behind him. Yeah. It's great. I'll have to send you guys a link later.
Yeah, I saw that and I wanted to buy it, but I think it was like $40. I'm like, I can't do that for a hat.
It's funny that you mentioned basketball and diversity day, Josh, because I love those two episodes as well. And I've heard a lot of people that have said season 1's not one of their favorites. Oh. And I do get some of that, and that some of the character development hasn't happened yet. But there are some great episodes in season 1. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think 2 and 3 might be the wheelhouse best, 2, 3, and 4. But season 1 is really good as well. I mean, you really can't go wrong with any of the seasons, but I always go back to Diversity Day, the basketball episode, as just being classics. That really just helps set the tone for the entire series, really.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Diversity Day. I love the callback.
You're a gentleman and a scholar.
You're welcome.
There's a callback to Diversity Day when Jim goes to Stanford, and Michael does something, and so like all the other branches have to have that diversity guy come out and do a diversity talk.
That's the episode when Oscar comes out.
Yeah,
yeah. That's the episode when Oscar comes out as gay. Or when Michael outs him. Yeah. And so and he does like a whole deal in the conference room there where he brings everybody and he ends up kissing Oscar. And another cringe moment.
Yeah.
And so then it cuts over to Stanford, and they're like, because of another incident in the Scranton branch. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I also think.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of my favorite series just of episodes is the 2-parter, the fire drill. I don't know if that's the name of the episode, but it starts out with the fire drill and then goes into Stanley having a heart attack and all that stuff. Like that whole sequence of events is just amazing, from start to finish. I love both of those episodes.
The best cold open by far. We're going to talk about cold opens too. And I apologize. I had it queued up and ready to play, video wise. I'd edited it, made it a little shorter to put on here. But do yourself a favor if you've never seen that. I think is it called Safety Brief? I think is the name of the episode. Cold open. It's 5 minutes, but pure hilarity. And, one thing I'd forgotten about that is I don't remember what Super Bowl it was, but that episode aired after a Super Bowl. The Super Bowl finished, and then that episode of The Office, brand spanking new, aired. And what an epic scene.
Yeah. He had to come right out
of the gate with. Just hilarious. If you haven't seen it, Dwight sets a fire in a garbage can and makes it as if the entire office is on fire, and then locks them all in there, and they're freaking out and breaking windows and climbing through the ceiling. Angela throws her cat through the ceiling, who then falls right back through the ceiling. I mean, it is hilarious. And then when Dwight pops off the fireworks and Andy's like, the fire's shooting at us.
I always love the part where Dwight cuts the face off the CPR dummy and like turns around and is like, hello, Clarice.
I was actually reading about that, and it's so great when they're doing the CPR and the instructor says, the song "Staying Alive," you do it to that beat, and he's like, "First I was afraid, I was petrified," and she's like, "No, and so there was apparently a guy who was in a situation where he had to give somebody CPR, and that's what came to his mind was that scene in The Office to know how fast to give the compressions. So that scene has actually saved a life.
I I hope he did the right song.
Well done, The Office.
Very impressive.
Well, the funny thing is, Erica learned that in a CPR class for her work. Like that was standard procedure for a while. But the funny thing about it is the same beats per minute Staying Alive and Another One Bites the Dust. The same beats per minute with the recordings.
We've been talking about favorite episodes and cold opens, are starting to come out as well. But the Race for the Cure episode is hilarious. And that one I think is an hour long. But just that whole opening of Michael hitting Meredith with their car and then proceeding to walk into the office and tell everybody is so funny. And we had talked earlier, we were texting about what we were going to share today. And we even talked about, making some sort of spiritual connections, because I think, as pastors and youth pastors and working in ministry, I've used The Office many times as, for an illustration when I'm teaching. And I think that scene in itself I've used before in teaching because, Michael walks in and he's hit Meredith with his car and she's gone to the hospital and he's basically going in to confess that this has happened to the entire office, but he doesn't want to admit guilt. And, isn't that us as human beings that, we have this, sometimes by the Holy Spirit, this conviction to confess, but yet we will beat around the bush sometimes when it comes to just coming right out with saying what we need to say. And Michael does that in that scene, just coming right out with saying, Meredith was hit by a car. I rushed her to the hospital. The doctors did what they could do to save her life. And she's going to be okay.
Stanley's immediate response, what is wrong with you?
And then I love, Andy's like, did you see who did it? And he's like, yeah, kind of a good news, bad news there. I was able to be on the scene so quickly because I was in the car that hit her. And then Jim's like, who was driving? And then Michael doesn't even say anything. He just makes a face at that point. He's just like,
oh, man.
Pam's like, oh, Michael.
Didn't they spend all the money that they raised on the fun run on the sign that they gave away to the winner?
Yeah.
On the big giant check.
Yeah. They gave to a woman dressed as a nurse.
Yeah.
I think I like that episode too because it deals with running, and I crack up, of course, when he's carb loading, eats the fettuccine Alfredo right before the run. It's hilarious. And then Andy dealing with the chafing.
Oh yeah,
which is totally a runner's thing.
Yeah,
I mean that happens, and you guys probably know that from cycling too.
And he ends up with cotton balls, doesn't he? And is that what he's wearing?
I think he puts them on first because he's like, this is to like stop the chafing, and then like at one point during the race, it's just like blood dripping from his nipple.
I have seen guys during long races that look like that. They are literally bleeding from the nipples. And it's that bad. So
how do you?
That's not even exaggeration. That's what's so funny.
So how do you protect yours?
They actually have these things called nip ease. They're little stickers, like little pasties that you put on your nipples.
Prove it. I'm going to look for nipples on nuts.
Exactly. You put them on before you run a long race. Yeah. And it's funny that it happened during a 5K because I think that's what they were doing in the office. Yeah. But, I wouldn't wear those for a 5K, but definitely for like a half marathon or more. Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts about that 5K too is when Creed and Stanley and Oscar, they all hop in the cab and just go like having a drink while everybody else is doing the race.
So we've talked a lot about episodes, but what about favorite characters? And then maybe we'll talk about least favorite characters.
Dwight, I think he's my favorite. I love watching him for all the reasons that have already been mentioned about Dwight and why Ryan identifies with him. He's just so out there and so intense. Believes everything he does is super important, and it's just like when he sets up the security system when he buys the building. And they even have like a clean room that they install outside the main door. And he can't remember the passcode. And it's when, who's the new?
Aaron.
Aaron is the receptionist. And she's like, because he had said, don't open the door if it's wrong. And he can't come up with the right passcode. And so he's out there like getting poisoned by his own security system.
I think
but he's so funny.
I think he says it's like delouser or something that they're spraying.
Something like that.
So ridiculous. I love, I think my favorite character that is sometimes like he fades in the background is Creed. Like sometimes you forget that Creed's there and then he'll just come out of nowhere and just have this like one-liner that just kills. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Like the one where he comes, it's like Halloween and he shows up and his shirt's covered in blood. And he's just like, this is really good timing.
Good timing.
Yeah. I just love that he has such a questionable like history and background that you really never truly discover. I mean, he'll give you little pieces of tidbits of things that he's done in his past, but
well, and then towards the end, when they
talk about living as a homeless
like,
person,
his background, like a lot of it's true. Like he was a musician that played in this band that toured around with the Grateful Dead, and like, all this stuff. So they baked his real life personality into the character a little.
Yeah, so great.
Baked, really.
It's from a different episode.
Seinfeld.
Or a different sitcom. Grant, what about you? Who's your favorite character?
Very practically, Josh from Nashua, the manager. He rode his bike every day. I commuted today by bicycle. I love that dude. And David Wallace is actually funnier than he gets credit for, too.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The situations he's dropped into. I like that.
He's a good straight man for like any situation.
The stuck cut or whatever?
The what?
What was it that he was trying to pitch after Dunder Mifflin? Was it like
Suck it.
Suck it.
Yeah, suck it. Yeah.
Suck it!
And did he make a fortune on it, too?
Yeah, he sold it to the military.
He was trying to get Michael to go in with them. They're sitting in the hot tub at his house. I think Michael still had a shirt on or something, didn't he? But they're sitting in the hot because he didn't come prepared for it. And he's trying. He's like, nah. He's like, Wallace has lost it. And then he goes off and makes this fortune.
Yeah, I obviously love Jim and Dwight and their whole interaction. Obviously Michael, I think, makes the show, but then you have characters like Jim and Dwight that are just, it wouldn't be The Office without them and their interaction either. And so, seeing Jim prank Dwight over the years, always hilarious. And, obviously, being able to relate to the characters as well. But Creed's one of my favorite, sneaky background characters, but Mose is probably that character that is one of those sneaky, funny, hilarious characters. And he's actually one of the writers of the show as well. Very talented writer and just absolutely cracks me up. Just every little appearance that he's in as kind of Dwight's psychotic cousin. Especially that episode where he brings Ryan to the beet farm and Moses running around. So great.
Or where Dwight's reading to them at the end of the night, and he's curled up in the bed, looking over at Jim and Pam.
So now you will wrestle my cousin Mose.
There's the one episode, the garden party. It's like a later episode where Andy throws a garden party at Dwight's farm, and they're like parking the car, and Mose like takes the car and just drives it straight into a cornfield.
Yeah. So we've talked about favorite characters. What about most annoying character, or like most character you dislike the most?
I might have an unpopular opinion here, but I got to go with Pam, and here's why. She knows that I'm forgetting names. The boyfriend,
Roy.
I just want to say Troy. It's like, that's not it. Roy. She knows that guy is a bum. She gets it. She knows, and she just hangs on to him. You know, and there's that scene where, or the episode where casino night, and I think it's the end of season 2, and it ends with Jim telling her that he's in love with her, and he kisses her. He's like, you just got to know, and she's like, and then he asks her, "Are you still going to marry him?" And she's like, "Yeah, I am." You know, I guess the show wouldn't have been what it was, you know, if she had dumped that guy when she should have. But the fact that she kept like hanging on to him as long as she did it put a sour taste in my mouth, like kind of for the rest of the show with her. I mean, she has redeeming qualities, but I think that character not making the decision that everybody's like, you need to dump this guy, because she's smart. You know, she is. She's sharp. Her character's sharp, and independent. But yet, for some reason, that guy just had a hold over her, and that drove me nuts.
It's kind of part of her character development too, though, that she overcomes that and overcomes, you know, not thinking about what she wants and things.
And it might just be she's my least favorite character in the first 2 seasons, you know, and then I don't know.
But you know, isn't her character so true of so many situations, though? I mean, very realistic. You know, and that people are in relationships sometimes with people who treat them poorly and don't really see a way out.
The Bears have never done anything good for me in my lifetime.
That's right.
Not once.
You dumped that poor sack of.
Call me Pam.
Because they're never going to put a ring on it.
Never.
I definitely feel like there's some easy characters to pinpoint out there, but mine, I think it starts out like, you know, early on, like Angela, obviously, you know, she's kind of just a despicable person in a lot of ways, but then as the show goes on, towards the end, so after Michael leaves and Andy becomes the manager of the office, and then like from that until almost like midway through the last season, Andy becomes the most hated character for me on the entire show. And like by the time he goes on the boat and leaves and then comes back and is trying to, like, you know, act like he's the boss, like I don't know what it is about him in that moment, but it just grates on me so bad. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just I'm going to throw something at him. He's so annoying.
But then he has probably the most emotionally charged, gut-wrenching kind of line in the whole show. In the last episode, when he says, "Don't you wish you knew you were in the good times as they happen?" Something, I'm saying that wrong, aren't I? But
wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you actually left them.
Before you leave them, yeah. And that's such a
that's one of my favorite lines in the whole series. Grant, you could probably do that, right?
I do have my banjo.
That's when Jim told him to sing falsetto to Pam. Wasn't it?
Yes.
In Pig Latin.
That was
With
great.
Pig Latin. Rainbow Annexion K.
Yeah.
That's clever.
I feel like Andy's character is definitely, like he goes all the way down, hits rock bottom, and then by that end, that line, that last line that he gives is kind of like, he's come around and matured a little bit finally.
It kind of redeems his character.
Oh, it definitely does.
He is all over the place during the whole series because he starts off as kind of this like goofball, and then he becomes like this angry, almost like villainous character. Like they're going to make him. It's kind of the Dwight to that Jim has another Dwight to deal with.
Yeah,
but then he just becomes this sucker, falling for Angela to the boss. Isn't it funny that Angela is the character in The Office that is the Christian character?
Yeah.
Did that ever bug you guys?
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Christian.
Super judgmental, but also kind of a terrible person.
Yeah. My gosh. So my least favorite characters, although they had some funny lines at times, and they're both funny people as writers, but was Kelly and Ryan. Never was ever that interested in either one of their storylines. They could have wrote both of them out of the entire show, and I probably would still like it the same. I just never ever thought either one of them were that funny. The funniest Ryan was early on when he was the temp.
Yes.
And Michael had a crush on him, and
and
was bringing him around like this intern. Ryan was great then, but as soon as they made him like the boss and everything else that he did, his character was awful.
He's
and
really
then Kelly having
that
a crush
point,
on
but
him.
he is such a quintessential like business bro at that point.
Yes.
Like I've met so many people in my professional life that just ooze that type of person. Oh, it's
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, and what made what made Ryan good in that was Michael. And and I mean Ryan was funny in that, but if it weren't for Michael having this bromance with him, it may not have been funny. But then his character also
in The Office.
That's right. Second year in a row, right? I think also though his character really did a good job of showing you how inept Michael is. Because he's in business school, and Michael's like, I don't need to go. I know everything or whatever. And then he just keeps getting schooled. And then he goes to one of his classes to lecture, and he rips up the book that they're studying from. And then he's got all the candy bars, like, who wants to have a payday?
That was hilarious. And then he hit somebody in the face with the candy bar.
Yeah. But you just see how like really inept Michael is compared
he's
to his
inept like when it comes to like knowledge of things, but when it comes to just like pure, skill into being able to deal with people and work with customers, like Michael constantly proves that even though Ryan went to business school and like knows all this stuff, Michael actually knows how to talk to people and sell to people. Like I always find that really funny, the juxtaposition of those two.
Well, when Ryan goes on a sales call with Stanley, and Stanley takes him to see his friends, all the black guys, and he's just like, hi. And then I pulled this sound clip.
You just said, hi. You sounded like my niece, and she's 6 months old.
Speaking of Michael being that great salesman, I love the scene, and this goes back to Jim and Dwight's chemistry and their whole relationship, but the scene where Jim and Dwight are having to act out a sales call, and Dwight is the salesman and Jim is the
Mr.
customer.
Buttlicker.
He's like, my name is Bill Buttlicker. That whole scene is hilarious, but especially when Jim, who's being Mr. Buttlicker, getting mad at Dwight and demanding to speak to somebody else, and he hands the phone. Dwight hands the phone to Michael, and Michael begins to act as if he's making an actual sales call. And Jim says, "I want to buy $1 million worth of paper from you." He's like, $1 million? He's like, the only stipulation is you have to fire that salesman who was rude to me. And Dwight's like, "Don't do it." Michael's like, "It's $1 million." But so funny.
Well, and one of the reasons you can't really like Ryan.
Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker Television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe. Ryan started the fire.
Was that the first time you guys had ever heard of the Desert Island game?
No,
yeah. What would you bring? Yeah,
yeah. I think that was the first time I'd ever heard that, and that was so funny. Like, what book would you bring?
And Angela says the Bible.
Yep, of course.
Harry Potter. Yeah, I'd bring Harry Potter to burn it.
The other time she makes a reference to Harry Potter is during the murder mystery game where she's like, "It's not my fault. I was exposed to Harry Potter."
When she was Voodoo Mama Juju.
Yeah.
Every time somebody's been put in charge of planning a party for our office, I always think of the party planning committee and that whole scenario and setup.
I think of the committee to plan parties.
The committee on committee.
Well, it was funny then when there was the party planning committee, and the committee plan, and the rivalry that kind of went on between the two of them, and the two totally opposite Christmas parties that developed from that. And then I just liked their when they were putting the signs up on the wall as far as when there starts, what they have. And they just this battle back and forth. That was a funny scene and a clever idea.
Double fudge, Angela.
Yeah,
double fudge.
Kevin's a character we haven't talked enough about
Kevin's
either.
such a great character.
He's so funny.
Kevin,
classic.
I can't decide between a fat joke and a dumb joke. Boom, roasted.
He's very funny.
So when they're doing the Office Olympics, and he's like, who can eat the most, or who can put the most M&Ms in their mouth, and Jim's like, you should win. You win. No one should ever try to do that again.
Or where someone tells Holly that he's special needs on her first.
Oh man.
I think she likes me.
It's like what's the worst part about that? Is it worse that Holly believed that, or that Kevin made it so believable?
I think it's funny in the one where we talked about earlier, where Oscar is outed, and as it's being made known in the office, it keeps cutting to Kevin's one-on-one interview shot, and he's just laughing. He just his face jiggling and his head all red. They just keep showing him laughing at the fact that he realizes that Oscar's gay. Yeah.
And just the fact that Kevin's in a Sting cover band is awesome.
Or the Police, right? Wasn't it the Police cover band? Not as different.
Police cover band.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Or when the cold open where they're trying to go as long as they can without making a noise, and Jim's writing on a notepad how long they've gone or whatever, and then Kevin opens up a candy bar and takes a bite. He's like, "Oh yeah." And maybe Angela says, "Can't you take a bite without making a noise?" And he's like, "But it's so good." And he takes another bite. "Oh yeah."
That dynamic of those three, Kevin, Oscar, and Angela, was always so great. With Angela just being who she is, and Oscar, absolutely just being, the kind of. It's funny because he's the gay guy, but he's kind of the straight man in that situation.
Yeah,
because the other two characters are so outrageous.
Him and Angela almost like act as like these like parental figures to Kevin a lot of times, which is really funny.
Yeah. So I know we've been talking a lot, and we got to wrap this up, and I think Grant has to leave soon. Is that an airplane landing?
That's 101st in front of Ryan.
Honda Civic.
Oh. But, there's so much we could talk about when it comes to The Office. Such a great show. But is there any like episode quote, favorite thing, moment that we haven't talked about that you guys want to throw in there before we wrap this up? I'll just say, if you're a racist, I will attack you with the North. Those are principles that I live by.
Abraham Lincoln once said.
Yep. Abraham Lincoln said that, according to Michael Scott.
Oh, my gosh.
You're always underestimating me. Maybe next time you'll estimate me.
Well, there's a ton with Michael. And like how the turntables, and then
his cap was detated.
I always love the episode where, or a couple episodes where Will Ferrell comes in after after Steve Carell leaves the show, and after he gets the basketball goal falls on him, and then he comes back to the office and like he's like in the hospital gown and stuff, and then at one point he's like, "Pound says lounge," and it's like making no sense.
I like if I had a gun with 2 bullets and I was in a room with Hitler, Bin Laden, and Toby, I would shoot Toby twice.
His hatred of Toby.
Yeah, it's so good.
I hate so much the things you choose to be.
I like when he's doing his performance review and Jan ends up coming, and I think Pam comes in to take notes or something, and it was just going to be Michael and Toby, and he has a gift to give to Toby. Holly. And he has a gift to give to Toby, and he opens it up, and it's a rock. It just says, "Suck on this."
And Toby's one of those characters. Again, we could spend hours talking about this, but Toby's one of those characters we didn't dive into, but a funny side character. And I mentioned to you guys earlier today, the episode where he and Dwight are staking out Daryl's house to see if he's falsely filing for a workman's comp, and he screams at Daryl's sister thinking it was Daryl. But the whole interaction when Daryl comes into the office with his sister, and Daryl says, "Why would you think that my sister looks like me?" And Dwight's just like, "Look at it, it's obvious." Yeah. And Toby's just like, "Oh, it's so great." Well, guys, we could spend forever talking about The Office, and I think one thing we all share is a love for humor and just general joy. Obviously, as brothers in Christ, just having that joy continually that flows from the Lord. But I think that His gift of humor is in each of us, and so we share a love for funny television and funny situations, and that's part of what drives us to do this show. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to spend a whole episode talking about one of our favorite shows, The Office. And we hope you guys, the listeners, have enjoyed it. Is there anything we need to close out with before we listen to Hunter sing us out?
We just need you guys to make sure you send us comments ASAP as possible.
Yes. Tell us what your favorite Office episodes are. Best characters, cringiest moments, all that good stuff. We want to hear it. And continue listening to the DudeFax podcast. We love you guys, and we're thankful for our 4 listeners that listen faithfully and the people that comment on our TikTok videos.
Even if they hate us.
Guys, we love you. Peace out. We'll see you later.
You took me by